It is time for the MMA DFS Strategy Show right here on awesomemode.com. That is the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. I am Jason Floyd. Hopefully everyone's having a good Wednesday evening if you're watching us live or if you're watching this after fact. Hopefully you're having a good start to your week. Hopefully we helped you make a little money last week. As overall last week, Pete, UFC DFS treated me pretty well, man. How did it treat you?
Absolutely. It was a great week. I really enjoyed the fights from top to bottom. I'll tell you probably the most impressive performance on the card, and it might shock you, was Bryce Mitchell. I really thought that his grappling looked like he leveled up. I mean, the pressure, a lot of people don't understand how that pressure feels, what it feels like, or like how impressive that is. But it was like Khabib-esque. It really was. It was really, really impressive.
Yeah, it's I will tell you, I was heading that Bryce Mitchell fight. I was hoping for a first round stoppage because I was looking really good on FanDuel. Still look good. I was about I think I was about 17 points off from being optimal. So yeah, it was a good night for me on both FanDuel and on DraftKings. And I will say this, if you watch live before lock, I throw it out there, the ceiling for Dustin Jacoby, 115, 120. Fight ends. I'm on FaceTime with Pete. Those two knockdowns put me over 121, and Pete did live up to his end of the bet. He did his push-ups.
Man, I actually forgot that. I'm actually not surprised you brought that up. I forgot all about it going into tonight, and yeah, of course, I always own up to my end of the bets if I'm wrong, of course. And your boy, man, he looked great. I told you I did like Dustin Jacoby in our initial breakdown. I didn't think the ceiling was that high, but he looked incredible. And it was a perfect example of a kickboxer versus a boxer who, if is too heavy on their front leg and gets leg kicked to death.
Yeah, I actually talked to Dustin earlier today, and he had said, he goes, the leg kick was the game plan. They really felt that going up against the boxer, that the leg kicks were going to be key. Goes out there. Alex Hernandez, who we were worried about in terms of his pricing on FanDuel, he goes out there. I mean, unbelievable performance that he had. I mean, if you went all in on the prelims, you did yourself really well. Adrian Yanez, he had a great knockout. And once again, main event's not optimal, which I think we do find ourselves always looking at that main event because it is 5 rounds, whether it's a title fight or non-title fight. These past couple weeks have just shown you don't have to have that main event because it may not be optimal.
Yeah, and I think it's the style of the main event, and I think we hit the nail on the head last week of how it was going to be a tit for tat kind of slower pace striking battle. I mean, Uriah Hall has output problems, I should say. Dana White calls him gun shy, and he is a bit gun shy, especially going up there against his role model in Anderson Silva. Sometimes you're a little shell shocked by the moment, and gets, what was it, a 3rd round victory, Jason? And that's usually the worst thing. Fourth round. Yeah, but whatever it wasn't optimal. It was still a great performance, but arguably lost the first 2 rounds to Anderson Silva.
The first 2 rounds looked like it was more like the ultimate staring contest.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a problem when this as a fighter, when you put 2 fighters in there that are counter strikers, that's the type of fight you can get.
Yeah, and it's a type of fight where you see when somebody gives an opponent too much respect, and that's exactly what Uriah Hall was doing, hoping to just lure him in instead of actually initiate the action. But this week, Jason, we got a banger of a card. Our main event. I think this is a very, very important main event, and I'll be rostering it plenty.
And I know we got a general question on Twitter. We'll get to that as the show goes on. Of course, if you have a question, you hit those up in our premium Slack channel or right here on YouTube as well. Of course, if you ever have a question, comment, you can always hit us up on Twitter. You see our handles there on the screen. I'm at Jason_Floyd. Pete is at Pete the Heat MMA. Before we kind of get down and break these fights, yesterday I actually looked at the betting odds first yesterday before I even looked at the DK salaries, because once I see the betting odds, I kind of know where salaries are at. And I will tell you, there was some betting odds on this card that did stick out to me. I was like, okay, all right. I will tell you, as I was going down the lines, my first thought was, oh man, Pete has got to be excited because I know the fact that it is a Romanov fight week. So we know you're excited. I was like, he's not the biggest favorite on this card. I go, oh, when Pete sees these salaries, he is going to be excited.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys know I love Romanov. I feel like the friend that just showed his group of friends, like a new rapper or something, and everybody's on the new rapper, and now you guys are on Romanov and Tom Aspinall. But you know, Romanov is just a stud, and I think this is a great matchup. They were initially supposed to fight each other, previously a couple months ago, and I still really like Romanov in the matchup. I think it's a bad matchup for Rogerio de Lima. You saw what Romanov is capable of doing, and I really feel like he can continually impress us. Like I think that he can get takedowns and ground and pound and submission ability. The guy's an animal.
Yeah, and of course, if you want to see the betting odds for the fights, just go to awesemo.com right there at the top of the screen. Go to Odds Shopper where you can check out these odds. And already Miles in the chat say, he goes, I was surprised to see Glover, the guy on the win streak, the lower price guy. Yeah, that was probably just because it was right at the top of the screen for me. That was the one that sticked out to me of how big of an underdog he was in that one, especially after coming off that great performance he had against Anthony Smith, and then of course Thiago Santos coming in off of injury. So that is something that's did stick out to me, but we will break this card down for you as we go through this card. Of course, we'll be here till about 8:25 ish or so. We'll give some time for the PGA guys to get set up with their show. But before we get into the fights, gotta let you know about the Awesemo Plus weekly pass, which you can get right now for $29.95 for nearly every DSEF sport out there. Get that weekly pass for $29.95. Includes full access to all of our premium content and tools. And if you're just looking for an MMA weekly pass, that is $8.95. So be sure to sign up right now. Awesemo.com/join, or right there at awesemo.com, the top left-hand side of the screen. You'll see Awesemo Plus. Sign up for a Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. Of course, we're always looking at those tools that Alex puts up on the website of why he is the number one DFS player out there. And we'll let you know about the free MMA Premium content we have on the website here as we do go on. But Pete, let's get kicked off with this card, talking about the main event, which when this fight was, I mean, of course, it's been delayed a couple of times now due to the issues of COVID with both of these guys. Is it was one of those fights that you just I thought was going to be a number one contenders fight. However, it's not a number one contenders fight because of we now know that Israel Adesanya is going to get the title matchup, and I see the reaction right there in the face. It tells you a little bit, but Thiago Santos on DK 8,800 on for Glover. He is 7,400. And FanDuel, we got to talk about this. FanDuel has changed their pricing on the main event. It is no longer, you're not paying up anymore for that underdog. Glover Teixeira, $14 on FanDuel, $21 for Thiago Santos. Break it down for us, Pete.
Yeah, I think FanDuel's been listening to our show of us constantly, yelling at them about how they price the main event. Thiago Santos' initial reaction is he's going to knock out Glover Teixeira, but not so fast, Jason. Thiago Santos is coming off a very impressive performance against John Jones that, some people say that he could have won that fight. And if you look at the damage he sustained in that fight, his performance is quite impressive. I mean, a torn ACL, MCL, PCL, meniscus in his left knee, required surgery. While the doctor was in, said, guess what? We checked out your right knee, and your right knee's pretty trashed as well. I mean, the guy's coming off a very, very serious injury in both legs and getting right back in there facing a hot contender. And it's crazy to call Glover Teixeira a hot contender because Glover is 41 years old. But there are some fighters that show that, age is just a number. And I do think that Glover has never really looked better. Incredible performance against Anthony Smith. The one thing about Glover Teixeira is if he can, take the big shot. Because I will tell you in this matchup, Thiago Santos, who I would say I'm a little torn in this situation, Jason, because I sparred Thiago Santos down in American Top Team. Super nice guy. Had a great sparring session. Glover Teixeira is from Connecticut and has been in the locker room, for Bellator when I fought a bunch. So I'm like a fan of both of these guys. But I will tell you that $14 for Teixeira on FanDuel, $7,400 for Teixeira on DraftKings. I think you're talking about a significant bargain if you can get the fight to the ground. That is it. It is a striker versus a boxer with a really strong ground game because Glover Teixeira has great skills on the feet. He can hang, he can hurt you, and then if that's not working, he can resort back to his grappling. I think that's the move in this situation. Don't stand up. Try not to get head kicked and knocked out by Thiago Santos.
Well, there's certain words we like to say, or at least I like to say here on the show. You know what Thiago Santos likes to do, right?
What's that?
He wants to throw them bungalows at you.
Yeah,
and he's got that death punch, man. He can end Glover's time. I feel like if you are going to be a Glover backer in this one, the thought has got to be this fight goes longer than 12 minutes. If you tell me a stoppage comes within the first 2 rounds, I think it's Thiago Santos. Now, look, my concern with Thiago Santos is what you just mentioned. First fight back after, the knee surgeries that he had. That is a concern. And Glover Teixeira, to me, look, Glover cannot have a striking matchup here. He's got to get this fight to the ground. You just don't want to sit there and have that type of fight with Thiago Santos, who he's got that death punch.
Yeah, I would say that Thiago Santos definitely, with his youth and his highlight reel, he would look like he has this significant striking advantage. But I do think it's close, Jason. I really do, because Teixeira isn't terrible in regards to striking at all. He has great hands. He presses you forward, and we saw what he can do to Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith was landing the jab at will early on and was kind of lighting him up. Glover made adjustments. Glover started to pick him apart, started to hurt him. He has power like crazy. I mean, Thiago Santos, first time back after suffering a major, major injury, to be facing a guy that is a legitimate contender. Like, you're really stacking the odds against him in this situation. So I don't want to overpay for that. I do think the odds should be a lot closer. I feel like the salary should be closer. I thought that this week was probably going to be about the 8,200, 8,000, 8,300, 7,900 type of fight. To see this salary disparity is a little crazy and a little shocking for me. Mm-hmm. I have plenty of interest in Glover Teixeira. I truly do. And I didn't really have too much interest in Justin Gaethje a couple weekends ago, but in this underdog situation, I think you really have to pay attention to it.
Yeah, let me get your thoughts on some things that Ian wrote here in the YouTube chat. He says Thiago has upside, but that same type of unorthodox fighting style leaves opening for a fundamentally sound dude in Glover. Glover is pretty consistently jab straight. Thiago throws all sorts of stuff from every angle and is a dog defending takedowns with great strength for the division.
Yes and no. I mean, the analysis is pretty good. I would say that, Glover is basic. He doesn't do anything, crazy or spectacular or unorthodox. I mean, it's pretty basic boxing base, mixes in good wrestling and good jiu-jitsu. We have seen Thiago Santos, he's 13-6 in the UFC. Glover Teixeira is 14-5. We've seen both of these guys finish. We have seen, Thiago Santos struggle on the mat. Now, in saying that, Thiago Santos is a big guy. He really is. He's 6'2". But, I think Teixeira matches up pretty well. It comes down to the wrestling. And I do think that Glover Teixeira holds the wrestling advantage here. Now, Thiago Santos needs to stay on the outside, work on picking him apart, make sure he's not kicking too much where Glover can wrap up the kick and take him down. So very, very interesting matchup. I want to see how these guys look at, weigh-in day. But I'm splitting my exposure about 60-40. I'll lean towards the underdog.
Yeah, of course, this is the MMA Strategy Show. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button right here on YouTube. Of course, if you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell as well. Of course, this is Strategy Show on Saturday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Will be MMA Live before lock. Will lead you up to UFC Vegas number 13, which lock time will be 7 p.m. Eastern Time this week. I was getting a little used to those earlier start times. I was liking that, Pete.
Yeah, I wish it was always like that.
I also felt like the earlier start time is there might be some people who forget to set their lineups and, helps you out your contest.
Yeah, I want any advantage possible.
Exactly. Now, the co-main event of this fight card, heavyweight matchup between Andrei Arlovsky and Tanner Boser. There was, a while here for Tanner Boser, a guy that was just known as a decision machine. That's what he had been. And, man, he has turned things around here in this pandemic era of fighting. Now he's in a co-main event spot against Arlovsky, 8,900 on DK, 7,300 for Arlovsky. And then over on FanDuel, $21 for Boser, and $10 for Arlovsky.
Yeah, man. You're talking about Tanner Boser, who a lot of people said that he couldn't even finish a sandwich, and now he's finished back-to-back fighters, Felipe Lins and then Rafael Pessoa. I mean, the guy was a decision machine. It's kind of finally hit his stride, and it goes to show you that in the heavyweight division, you just never know. And I will tell you that this is a nice spot for Tanner Boser. I think Andre Arlovsky at 41 years old, his style, what he enjoys doing in striking, so you're only going to be able to do that so much. And he has been finished quite a bit. 18-13 in the UFC definitely holds the experience advantage here. But I've been kind of writing Arlovsky off for quite some time, and I'll be pretty open about that. This is a point fight, back and forth. They both enjoy standing up. They both enjoy trading leg kicks. And then I just think Tanner Boser is really the younger guy. I think that he can, hurt Andre Arlovsky. 8,900 for a guy that is 63% finish rate is not the best, but I do think it's a very nice spot here, and I'll have plenty of exposure.
My concern would be is Arlovsky just tough enough and durable enough to survive these strikes, and it's a 15-minute decision, and does Boser bring you the points that you're going to want for a fighter who's 8,900 on DK and $21 over on FanDuel?
Yeah, I think the 21 on FanDuel is a little nuts, just because FanDuel construction is a little difficult. But I will say that at 8,900, sometimes those 8K options are forgotten, and people automatically pay up, or go to that mid price range, and those 8,800, 8,900, 8,700 fighters are forgotten. So I will have some exposure there. I'll temper expectations based on Arlovsky's toughness. Arlovsky is very skilled on the feet. He could clip and hurt Boser. It's a very unlikely scenario here. I do think that Boser, 3-1 in the UFC, he went the full distance against Ciryl Gane, and Ciryl Gane is a guy that I hold to a very, very high standard, and I think is going to be a legitimate contender at one point in that division. So Tanner Boser, for me, I think it's a nice spot for him to continue to make a name, and the UFC knows what they're doing in this matchup.
Do you know the last time Andre Arlovsky won by stoppage?
I would say 2015, something like that.
Correct. Travis Brown, which, by the way, if you are a newer fan of MMA and you've never watched that fight, just find it. It is fun for the 4 minutes and 41 seconds that it lasted. One of the funnest fights that you can see.
What a mess. Wasn't that like they were both spinning around, like flailing their arms? But it was a crazy fight, absolutely.
Yeah, but that would be my only concern about Boser in that spot. Is just the fact of if he's excuse me, with Arlovsky, is he tough enough just to stick around there? Ian goes, Boser's name is one of the biggest new risers during COVID. I would be surprised if this is a step up for Boser to look good against a legend of the sport.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, look, this is classic UFC matchmaking. This is what the UFC does. You got an older, fighter who's been around, who's got a name. You got a younger guy that you think that you can develop and get people excited about. This is what the UFC does. I would say this, and I'll agree with you, man. The FanDuel pricing, man, yeah. At $21, I feel like I need a stoppage because I don't necessarily see Arlovsky going for takedowns. That was one of the things with Kevin last week against Miles. Is even after the fight was over, I text you. I said, you know what? Even at I don't want to say on FanDuel because of the takedown defenses, he had like 40 points, and I'm like, man, if you got your rest of the lineup is all fighters with stoppages, he might be optimal just because of how the card goes. But that didn't take the place here. But man, I'll have a little Tanner Boser. I won't have a ton though, and I don't see myself having maybe 5% shares of Arlovsky.
I'll virtually have no Arlovsky, and it's kind of like some fighters I just don't get behind, and he's one of them. I have been wrong a few times, but more often than not, I'm on the correct end of it.
Let's move on to the card. Next up, we got Barcelos versus Taha. Barcelos 9,100 on DK. 7,100 for Taha, and then over on FanDuel, $23 for Hani Barcelos, and Taha is $8. Let's get your take, man.
Man, talk about just a great matchup. I wish these guys both had full camps for this. I know that Taha has had a full camp, and Howdy Barcelos has virtually stepped up on short notice. Now Barcelos in the division is 4-0 and is an absolute killer. I think that this guy is a legitimate contender in the division. He is so talented. He can strike with you, power shots, and his grappling is just on a whole nother level. He takes people down, he subs them, he ground and pounds them. Taha, very physical guy, has shown holes in his game of getting taken down and manipulated on the mat. I think that this is an automatic. A lot of people will look at this and automatically write off Taha. But let me tell you, when a guy steps up on short notice, you don't know how really prepared they are, or if they're actually overlooking their opponent. So perhaps Barcelos thinks this is a very easy fight for him. He's just going to take him down to get a quick victory. Because if his gas tank isn't the best, you're talking about a guy who has had a full camp and Khalid Taha. And I will not be ignoring Taha here at 7,100 based on his price, based on the fact that Barcelos, took the fight on short notice, and that Taha is so strong. Not the best takedown defense, but has good finishing ability, 85% finishing ability out of 13 victories. I don't think you can ignore this fight. I think he's one of the better underdog plays based on the reasons I just stated. But it's Barcelos. On paper, if you line these guys up and you go skill for skill, Barcelos checks off more boxes than Taha does. That is just the simple facts. 9,100 for a guy who is an absolute monster, Jason. Obviously, temper expectations because of the last minute notice, but should be a good spot.
Yeah, just looking at the prop bets for this one, plus 175 for Barcelos to win by submission. So that kind of tells you where the lines makers are thinking how Barcelos is going to win the fight. Now, if you like Taha, I would just take the plus 305. Don't even chase the money with the prop bets. Just take the plus 305. But if you wanted to chase some of the prop bets with Taha, wins by TKO KO is plus 810 to win by submission, plus 1275. I would rather just take the plus 305 and I mean, look, we talk about it every week. You've got to find those fighters under 7,500 on DraftKings and under $15 on FanDuel that you think have a good shot to win. And by listening here, I feel like old Pete the Heat's going to have some shares of Taha this week.
Yeah, a limited play because for me, I don't play every 7K or 6K option. I chop off some of them and then kind of just spread out my exposure that way, just so I can really get the fighters that I want. Taha is definitely in play because of the reasons I stated, but Barcelos should win this fight. He really should. He's just a better fighter.
Now, the fight that I am most interested on this card outside of the main event is the middleweight matchup between Ian Heinisch and Brendan Allen. These two guys have been talking about fighting now for a while. They were LFA, RFA, just never kind of came together. I will tell you this: when I saw the salaries for this one, it's pretty interesting because we've got a little vice versa action here between DraftKings and FanDuel. DraftKings, Brendan Allen 8,400, Ian Heinisch 7,800. Right when I saw that, it's like, ooh, okay, I know who's going to end up in a lot of my lineups. And then over on FanDuel, it's $17 for Ian Heinisch, $15 for Brendan Allen.
Yeah, I am really interested to see this matchup. I think that we have seen both of these guys exposed in a way, even though Brendan Allen's 3-0 in the UFC. He hasn't coasted to wins. Like, he's been put in bad positions as well. He's kind of shown a susceptibility to getting reversed or put on his back or just shaken off. Ian Heinisch has struggled as well. And if you look at who Ian Heinisch has fought, he's fought better grapplers than Brendan Allen to this point. Brendan Allen is extremely young, and it blows my mind. He's 24. He is 24 years old, and he's 3-0 in the UFC, 87% finish rate overall, going up against Ian Heinisch, who actually has less fights than Brendan Allen. 14-3, 50% finish rate. I think it comes down to the matchup, and Ian Heinisch is a very good wrestler. A lot of people don't give him credit, but he is a very good wrestler. Has exceptional power, and it's kind of like secret, like not too many people respect it. You did see it against Gerald Meerschaert, how he put him down, put him out pretty easily. I like the 7,800 Ian Heinisch. I really do. On DraftKings, and I understand why you're shaking your head. And it's because of
No, no,
how.
no, no, no. I'm agreeing with you, bro.
Oh,
I am all over Ian Hines in this
oh,
matchup.
okay.
I
Yeah,
like look. I think that if Brent, to me, what'll be interesting about this matchup if it becomes a grappling matchup. That
yeah,
to me is where I look at Brandon Allen. I think that would be more of his world in this matchup. But when I saw the price on DraftKings, I was like, if you told me the price point was 8,400 and 7,800, I would have said, all right, Ian Hines is 8,400.
yeah,
I would
yeah.
not have guessed Brandon Allen was the 8,400 fighter.
Yeah, I mean, this fight screams Scramble City, not Takedown City, Scramble City. Like they're going to be going back and forth, putting you in a bad position, putting you there, dirty boxing. It's going to be an ugly but exciting fight. And I think an ugly fight favors Ian Heinisch. I really do. I think that he thrives in situations like that. I know how he's going to respond in fights like that. Whereas Brennan Allen, 3-0 in the UFC, but I think that he has some notable wins, but they're not flawless victories by any means. And I wonder if the going gets tough, does he somewhat break? I will say that Brendan Allen looks like he is now at Sanford MMA, or maybe he did a split camp, which is interesting. Leading up to this fight, Ian Heinisch has talked about his struggles with camps. You talk about Thailand. Now he's did most of his camp in Vegas for this fight, or previous fight. But like, this is an interesting matchup. I think you need to smash your exposure here. 7,800 for Heinisch. If you look at what he's averaged on DraftKings, 65 points, and that's what I thought you were shaking your head at, is kind of, it's not the best score depending on how the fight goes. I think that you could see an elevated score based on advances, reversals, knockdowns, takedowns, everything. I'm really excited for this fight.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's one of these fights that, when you're talking about what's going to be the optimal lineup, I think this is a fight that you definitely have to look at. Miles saying must roster this one. Eric saying Allen $15 is ignorant on FanDuel. Ian saying Heinisch is likely my fighter I'll be most overexposed to compared to the field. Great finishing upside aside from Dusty Merchart. Yeah, I think I'll probably be overexposed as well on Ian Heinisch and his price. It all comes down to price point here. I just like the value at 7,800, but I really like this fight. And you bring up a great point. This could be a fight on DK where you could rack up some points on those advances.
Yeah, I think for me, right, it's a very close fight as the odds suggest. Minus 110 for each of them. I think it's based on the site you're at, right? Like Heinisch, 7,800, he's a DraftKings play. Allen at 15, those $2 on FanDuel definitely help you out. They really do. So I think depending on the site, you just use whichever's cheaper.
No, I absolutely agree with you. Of course, if you do have any for our premium subscribers, you have any questions, hit those up in our Slack channel, and I will get to those questions as they do come in. And now my second fight on the undercard that I like the most is the female matchup of Claudia Gadelha and Yan Jinan. 7,900 for Claudia. She's $15 on FanDuel, 8,300 for her opponent, and $17 on FanDuel.
I think I'm going to shock some people this week, Jason, with who I'm backing and who I'm not.
Oh, are you about to back Claudia Gadelha when?
No.
Okay. I mean,
No.
I just know we've had some conversations in relation to Claudia Gadelha and her coaching staff of like, have they forgotten she's a grappler?
Nope. And that's exactly why I can't get behind Claudia Gadelha. I think it's a trap. And the reason I think it's a trap is because everybody on the outside, we know her easiest path to victory for her fights, right? Exceptional grappler, good wrestler, holds an advantage in that department over a majority of the division. Good striker, can survive in striking matchups, has fallen in love with her hands based on her coaching staff with Mark Henry and the guys around Nick Catone MMA and Ricardo Almeida, all those guys around there. I'm not falling for Claudia Gadelha here because I will say that Yan Xiaonan coming in at 8,300, $17 on FanDuel, high volume striker, and very good at distance management, can keep Claudia away from her. Does have some good grappling as well, probably not as good as takedown defense. Her takedown offense is pretty good. As long as she can avoid getting just blanketed on the mat by Claudia Gadelha, which is unlikely because Claudia will not go that route.
Hmm.
I think this is Zhao Nan's fight. I really do. I think that Claudia will, you know, will be behind from the get-go. 3 strikes per minute compared to Zhao Nan's 6.7. And if you watch Zhao Nan, she has some pretty notable wins over Angela Hill, Kovacevic as well. Like the girl, she looks good when
Yeah.
she goes. And her competition outside the UFC isn't that impressive. So if you're looking and comparing resumes, obviously Claudia Gadelha is going to look like she's fought the tougher opposition. I can't argue that. That's the truth. She has. But guess what? I'm also looking at Zhao Nan as a rising fighter and a Claudia Gadelha as somewhat of a plateau fighter, where I feel like she's kind of been the same and
Hmm.
hasn't changed her game plan and is straying away from becoming elite by not doing that. So for me, I think Zhao Nan is so talented. Based on her volume, man, 8,300, I'm with it.
Yeah, I mean, I just you great point. It's, with what we've seen with Claudio and Mark Henry, it's just I have concerns. I mean, but if she does go that takedown round, on the FanDuel side of things, that's something you got to think about with her opponent there. By the way, the prop bet fight goes to decision -270.
Yeah, throw your mortgage on it. Yeah, man, that I think it's going to be a decision. And I think it's going to be another moment where Claudia's going to have to sit back and really just kind of figure out, okay, what are the real changes I need to make to my game? Um, you know, I like Zhao Nan, man, quite a
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. I mean, it's a fight that I think has got a high probability of going 15 minutes. So I think that's something you got to think about in terms of building your rosters. Now, when you're looking to build your lineup for this week's UFC event, you got to go over to awesemo.com. Free premium content right now on the website, MMA Top Fighters Tool. Go over there, check out that tool. It's a tool that Alex puts together each and every week. As this week, it is free for on the website. MMA Top Fighters Tool. So you got to check that out right now over at awesemo.com. Next up, we got Trevin Giles taking on Bevon Lewis. Trevin Giles, 8,000. Bevon Lewis, 8,200. And they're both $16 on FanDuel. Of course, we all remember what happened with Trevin Giles in his last fight. There's an article, I want to say it's up on MMAJunkie.com, as he talked about what happened in terms of that. But Pete, break this one down for us.
Gosh, well, my favorite price point, 8,200, 8,000, and usually one of the toughest fights to call, if not the toughest fight to call. I will say that you have an overhyped prospect in Bevon Lewis coming. He was touted by John Jones as
Mm-hmm.
the next big thing. Fell short in the UFC for a little bit, came back, looked really good on the Contender Series, and had a very good performance. Looks like he's somewhat matured. Didn't really have the easiest fights in the UFC. Hindsight is 2020. You think he debut against Uriah Hall and then lost the decision to Darren Stewart. And if we look what Darren Stewart has really done since getting well, this was before Darren Stewart left the UFC, but Darren Stewart overall has been impressive. Arguably beat Kevin Holland. He really did.
Yeah.
Like that fight was very, very close. So those are two fights, and Uriah Hall just KO'd Anderson Silva. So what are we talking about here? Bevon Lewis, 8,200, very good striker, going to be the bigger guy in the cage, 3-inch height advantage, 5-inch reach advantage. Not the best finishing ability, 43% out of his 7 victories. A little worrisome. Trevin Giles, he's kind of a mediocre talent, in my opinion, for the UFC. Good hands, okay wrestling, 83% finish rate. He was really, I think his skills showed off better on the regional scene than they are in the UFC. James Krause took a fight on what was it, Jason? 24 hours notice or something
Yeah,
crazy
yeah,
against
24, 30 hours, yeah.
Giles. And it was a very, very close fight. Some people think that maybe that fight wasn't his. It was a split decision win over James Krause. I will say that it hurts me to say, but I do think that Bevon Lewis could be finding his stride. We don't really know what happened to Trevin Giles in the back. Could have been anxiety. I didn't get a chance to read that article. I don't know if you did. You know, I'm leaning Bevon Lewis, and it really hurts me to say.
Yeah, it's I just kind of read the highlights of the article, but the question is kind of I guess you always kind of in the back of your mind you wonder, is there going to be any issues this time around or not? And obviously stepping back in there, I mean clearly, obviously he's been cleared by doctors and all those lines, but I mean look, Bavon Lewis is a guy that people really have touted up for a long time, and to me, I think it's one of those fights where you want to roster it, but you don't feel good about it.
Yeah, I definitely don't feel good about it. I don't think you can trust either one of them. It's very hard to trust either one. I don't know who you really trust more at this point. I mean, Bavon Lewis will be making his return debut. So how does he handle that? How does Trevin Giles handle the anxieties and the pressure of passing out backstage? I will tell you that fighting is one of the most difficult things you can do, and it is a gut check, but more than anything, it is a mental battle. Like, plenty of fighters in the back and early on in my career, like, you struggle with that mental side of the fight game more than the
Mhm.
physical. Once you get in the cage and you hear the bell ring and you get hit once, trust me, you are not nervous about a thing. Like, you are not nervous about a
Yeah.
thing, but in the back, you are contemplating all possibilities, what could happen. I hope Trevor Giles is all right, and I don't want like him to suffer another anxiety attack if it was. But I'm favoring Bavon Lewis because of all the unknowns.
Yeah, it's be I definitely I feel like I'll have more shares of Von Lewis than I will of Trevin Giles. Next up, we just got Jacasey and Simmons. Simmons 6,900 on DK, 9,300 for Jacasey. No pricing on FanDuel when I put my sheet together here earlier on today. I guess the question is, are you paying up for Jacasey?
I will. I will. I think it's pretty crazy that he is almost a minus 500 favorite. There's no reason why he should lose this fight to Simmons. I mean, Jakaze is a really really talented striker. Um, Actually looked better than ever in his previous performance against a guy that is a hell of a lot better than Simmons. A hell of a lot better than Simmons. Omar Morales really throws heat, has good grappling, and Jakaze picked him apart. He literally picked him apart. He took him to school, um, and I think this is another spot where Chikaze is going to do the same. Simmons does have some pop in his punches and is aggressive. So anytime we're talking about an overlooked fighter who is extremely aggressive, I always bring up Justin James against Frank. You know what I mean? Like, you have to give them respect in that regard. But I think this is just a nice matchup for Chikadze, and they think that they got something here. The kid's going to be 5-0 in the UFC.
Yeah, man, it's I mean a big price point, and we'll see what I mean the fact that he's 9,300 on DK. I mean, he's going to be well north of $20 on FanDuel. I mean, and that's going to be the question of, you know, if it's a 15-minute decision, I can't see paying that kind of price on FanDuel.
I would agree. I just really don't know if Jamie Simmons can really survive for 15 minutes, and that's the truth. I mean, Jamie Simmons has been finished on the regional scene. Round one loss to a knee against Jake Childers. Round one guillotine loss. That's he's not going to get submitted by Giga Chikadze, but getting knocked out, clipped, hurt, finished, definitely possible. Giga should win this fight very easily.
Now we all know Saturday is going to be pizza. It's like a national holiday for Pete because it means it's a Romanov fight week. I guess I mean look, he's 9,000 on DK, 7,200 for Marcos Rogerio de Lima, $22 on FanDuel. For Romanov, $9 on FanDuel. I think in terms of this fight is look, a good portion of if you're playing these big GPs are going to have Romanov in their lineup. My imagine is you're probably going to be 6 or 7 out of 10 lineups are going to have Romanov in it. So you gotta. I think the thought has got to be is, can you fade Romanov at all this week?
I really don't think so. I really don't, Jason. I'll probably fade it to just get a little contrarian, but majority of my lineups need to have Romanov in it, and the reason is because of the matchup. Rogerio de Lima has shown a big, big gaping hole on the map, and if he can get controlled by lesser opposition, Stefan Struve, I shouldn't say Ovid St. Preux is not at Romanov's level, but I do think that it's a similar type of style. The big one that sticks out, Antigolov. Guys that are losing to Antigolov, man, I really don't really want to back them at all. Nikita Krylov, Stefan Struve, like he's been taken down several times. He has been passed, mounted, taken his back, choked out. Romanov's going to do all of that. Romanov might throw him out of the cage. He might drag him, pull him back in the cage. I think Romanov is going to put on another highlight performance. He'll start, belly to back suplexing everybody, belly to belly suplexing everybody. He might even throw the ref. I don't know. I'm excited. Every time this guy steps in the cage, Jason, I want to watch. I coach a lot of heavyweight fighters as well. And even before Romanov made his debut, I told my guys and I showed videos of him. And I said, I want you guys to work towards emulating your style like him. Because I have a lot of strong grapplers. And I think that it's a perfect style. It's almost what DC was doing before and what DC should have been doing all along to everybody when you hold such a grappling and wrestling advantage over your opposition. Romanov at 9,000, Jason. I love it. And Rogerio de Lima, unless Romanov gets tired from beating the crap out of Rogerio de Lima, I really don't see how he loses this fight.
All right, over under 113.5 points on DK for Romanov.
Over.
Real. Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't want to set the number too high.
Yeah. Yeah. No, over, bro. Over. Yeah. He is in a great matchup, and he's already studied Rogerio de Lima. It's not like he's getting a monkey wrench thrown to him where he's fighting somebody on short notice that he doesn't know. They've already studied each other. Rogerio de Lima is going to try to keep the fight on the feet, trying to knock him out. He has crazy punching power. Can definitely clip Romanov if you want a contrarian approach. Throw Rogerio de Lima in 1 out of 10 because I can't do it. But if you want to be contrarian, you can do it.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. I was going to say, hey, what is the path to victory for de Lima?
Do not let Romanov grab you at all. Do not try to tire out Romanov, but do not let Romanov grab you at all because he's going to take him down. Rogerio de Lima's 6-4 in the UFC, Jason, and holds a 36% takedown defensive rating. Horrible rating for a guy going up against one of the best wrestlers we've seen in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, it's going to be, everyone's going to be on Romanov, but of course we know Pete. I mean, Pete might have 100% Romanov. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm planting my flag. I will.
Next up, we got Darren Elkins taking on Eduardo Gargorori, who 8,700 for Darren Elkins. The damage, every time I see that tattoo, I'm like, oh man, that's the problem. He likes to take damage. Are you willing to pay 8,700 for the damage here?
Yep, I will. And I think that I shocked myself by saying that. But I think it's the matchup, man. I think Eduardo Garagorri is not one of the most talented fighters at 145 pounds. Darren Elkins is on a 4-fight losing streak, which is always a little worrisome because, the guy has taken a ton of damage, no pun intended, over his career. But if you look at who he's fought, his past 4 opponents, Nate Landwehr, Ryan Hall, Ricardo Lamas, Alexander Volkanovski, all studs. I will even call Nate Landwehr a stud. I will. Garagorri, regional talented fighter, 13-1, gets exposed in the UFC, hasn't fought the best opposition, needs to keep the fight on the feet. Elkins, despite taking so much damage, is really, really tough and pushes the pace. And I think the pace breaks a lot of people. And, between chain and takedowns together, relentless striking, grappling, he gets in your face. He knows what his game plan is, Jason, and he sticks to it, and he tries going back to that well over and over. And it usually breaks his opponents. Garagorri here is in a nice spot from a damage perspective of him being able to take advantage of Darren Elkins' career and possibly catching him on the chin and finishing him. I really think it's quite unlikely. I think Elkins here at 8,700 is priced appropriately. I think it's a nice spot for him to get back in the win column. If he loses to Eduardo Garagorri, I would imagine he's, possibly done in the UFC. I mean, that would be 5 fights in a row that he's lost. But I think that the UFC does want him to win here.
Next up, we have got Max Griffin taking on Brahima. Griffin 8,600, Brahima 7,700, then $19 on FanDuel, $12 on for Brahima.
I think that this is a very nice underdog spot for Brahima. And I will say that Brahima is 7,700, priced appropriately, making his UFC debut. Don't really know what we're going to get. Comes out of a very, very strong gym in Fortis MMA. Look what Fortis has done, Jason, especially during quarantine. They've been really the spotlight of the gyms. That they've been excelling in all spots. Max Griffin is 3-6 in the UFC. Bit of a rough patch here, man. You know what you're going to get in Max Griffin. It's going to be a lot of distance striking, good hands, but usually resorts to takedowns to win his fights and put his opposition in bad spots. Will strike with you enough and get takedowns to win rounds. The problem in this situation is I do think that he is not the better grappler. I do think that Brahima is the better grappler here. Hunts submissions like no other. Comes in at 8-2, does have a 100% finish rate. I mean, I don't like putting so much stock in a debuting fighter because you just don't know how they're going to react to the lights, the bright lights and everything. But I do think that Brahima does have a nice future in the division based on his finishing ability, highly skilled on the mat. I mean, he's medaled in worlds in jiu-jitsu. The guy is going to hunt takedowns. He's going to try to take Max Griffin to takedown city. And, Griffin does have a 66% takedown defensive rating, but I do think that we have seen in certain matchups, he can get outworked on the mat. Give me the underdog here, Jason. I'm really liking a lot of underdogs this week. I think that some fighters are mispriced, so give me Brahima.
And then our first fight of the night is going to be Gustavo Lopez taking on the returning Anthony Birchak. No pricing on DraftKings. On FanDuel, we do have a price for Lopez, $18. It's been a while since we've seen Anthony Birchak in the UFC. He is back here. He's won back-to-back fights, most recently in LFA. But break this one down for us.
Man, so you have Lopez who debuted against Merab. So talk about a guy just willing to go to Takedown City. And he did go to Takedown City. I think he was taken down like 18 times or something absolutely ridiculous. But in doing so, he is so tough that he did not give up. I know Merab doesn't have the best finishing ability, but the guy tried to work towards his feet, did defend some takedowns. And when a guy is on short notice getting absolutely mauled and he's still trying to fight, you have my attention. And I know that sounds like, that's how all fighters should be. But let me tell you, it's very difficult to keep a high pace or to keep standing back up or to keep trying to be competitive in a fight. I mean, if you think about it, there's no reason why Merab should have taken him down 18 times or whatever it was. He should have taken him down a few times and kept him down with good ground control. So Lopez clearly did some things right in the matchup. Birchak coming back to the UFC, was 2-2 in the UFC. Both these guys have pretty high finish rates. 91% for Lopez, 81% for Birchak. I really got to see these. I got to see the weigh-ins first, but I also want to see the salaries. I want to see what these guys are priced like, because if Lopez is high, I probably will be underweight on it because, Birchak's no slouch. If they're close, I might actually lean Lopez, to be honest, based on the toughness, and he's been in the cage more recent in the UFC. But it's very tough to really, put my finger on which direction we're gonna go. Definitely keep your eyes and ears on the Live Before Lock show on Saturday. We'll break this down even more. We'll have salaries finally. We'll have some odds, and then we'll actually have the weigh-ins as well.
Of course, right now it is the MMA Strategy Show. If you ever do miss our show live on Wednesday nights, it is a part of the Awesemo Podcast Network. Of course, all of our shows are available right here on YouTube, but also we are also available on the Awesemo Podcast Network. Give us a 5-star review. That does help us out a lot. And when you do that, you'll be entered into a monthly draw for a free Platinum Plus subscriptions. Make sure to leave your Twitter handle or Awesemo username so we can contact you. But time for fight picks, as of course coming up next year on Awesemo.com is the PGA show. So Let's start off right with the main event: Thiago Santos and Glover Teixeira. You're torn.
Teixeira.
You're torn.
Teixeira.
Give me Mr. Bungalows. Give me Thiago Santos.
Okay.
Andre Arlovsky, Tanner Bozer.
Bozer.
I agree. Honey Barcelos, and Khalid Taha.
Barcelos.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. If yours break it down, I think you know who my pick is here. Ian Heinisch and Brandon Allen. Give me Ian Heinisch.
It's a close fight. Ian Heinisch.
Kadelia, Janan. Give me Janan.
Yeah, Xiaonan for me.
Giles Lewis.
Lewis.
I will go Lewis as well. Chikaze Simmons.
Chikaze, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Do I really have to ask?
Yeah.
Do I have to ask Romanov or Lima? I mean,
Romanov.
I think anyone who knows you knows Romanov is big. I'm guessing you like Darren Elkins?
I do. I like Elkins.
Griffin Brahima.
Brahima.
I'm going to go with the upset there as well. I like back and forth as fighters. Then we got Lopez and Bierchak.
Tough fight to call, man. I'm going to go Lopez. I actually think I surprised myself.
Yeah, I'm going to go Lopez there as well. Of course, we'll get some questions in here before we get out of here on this edition of the Strategy Show as I kind of scroll through some of the questions here in terms of it. Let's see here. Boop, 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 boop. Samuel popping in his usual questions. Top two favorites, top two underdogs, upset of the night. Let's go upset of the night first off.
Glover.
Ooh, you're going Glover. Gustavo Lopez is plus 145, so give me Gustavo Lopez.
They have the line for that?
Yeah, it's up right now. Yeah, plus 145.
Wow. Okay.
Top two favorites. Well, we already know who one of yours is.
Yeah, I will go Bozer though.
I like that. Yeah, I would. I feel good about that.
I think that's a safe pick.
Top two
Bozer
underdogs.
Top two underdogs
on DraftKings. Ian Heinisch would be my number one. I think this guy. I think I think you have to have the winner of that fight.
I think top two underdogs.
Brahima will be my second one.
Brahima and Teixeira for me.
Yeah. Top cash and top GPP. Top cash.
Bozer.
Yeah, and then Romanov's got to be GPP.
I think he could be cash too, though. But
yeah,
I mean, he's probably the best cash option. He's the safest play probably on the card.
Yeah, he's gonna be chalky. I mean, you know that when you put him in your lineup, he's gonna be chalky. It doesn't matter what slate you put him on. I mean, he's gonna be a chalky guy. But we all know that. By the way, just a reminder: the MMA Top Fighters tool is our free premium content over at awesomeo.com. Barcelos or Bozer in DraftKings?
I would say that Barcelos has a higher upside, but I do think that Bozer, I don't have too many questions about Bozer in that situation because he's not taking the fight on short notice. Barcelos is taking the fight on short notice. You don't know how good his cardio is, and that's one thing. If Khalid Taha has been training takedown defense extensively, if he stuffs a few of Barcelos' takedowns, why can't he win the fight? I mean, he could. Mm-hmm. So I would say Bozer in that situation.
And let's leave on this question. Main event, we're stacking in DraftKings cash.
No, I don't think so, at least. I mean, it's hard to stack when one fighter's high-priced and the other fighter's low-priced. If they are both mid, I guess it kind of makes a little bit more sense. Thiago Santos would have to still outperform a lot of 8,000 or 9,000 options. But also Teixeira would have to do enough in a loss. I don't know. I'd try it maybe in one.
Yeah, I'm not a big cash person in stacking in cash. I'm just not. It's just not something I like to do. But that is going to wrap it up for the MMA Strategy Show. Coming up next It'll be the fantasy golf lineup for the Houston Open as guys will get you ready for the PGA event this week. Myself and Pete will be back on Saturday for MMA Live Before Lock, which will start at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We will talk to you then.